There are quiet constants stitched into the rhythm of life. The sun still rises. Each dawn whispers, begin again. Light spills across the earth, warming skin, waking trees, stirring all creation into motion. Laughter lingers. Friendships bloom like spring blossoms. Hope runs wild, and joy feels endless. Seasons promise new chances. And for a time, everything feels right. But even the brightest day gives way to dusk. The sun dips low, the shadows stretch long, and darkness, uninvited, settles in. Friendships drift. Success fades like the morning mist. Hearts break. People leave. People die. What once felt like eternal joy sinks into sorrow's heavy sea. Cold, silent, still. And you ask yourself in the quiet, how will I ever find my way back? And yet, as sure as the seasons change, light returns. It takes time. 3 days sealed in darkness. 3 months in mourning. 3 years of wandering. Hope rises with the dawn. Jesus steps from the tomb, and with him, new beginnings break open. New possibilities appear, and what felt like the end of the journey was really just the beginning.
A reading from the Gospel according to Luke chapter 24, verses 1 through 12. But on the first day of the week, at early dawn, they went to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared. They found the stone rolled away from the tomb, but when they went in, they did not find the body. While they were perplexed about this, suddenly 2 men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. The women were terrified and bowed their faces to the ground. But the men said to them, "Why do you look for the living among the dead? He is not here, but has risen. Remember how he told you while he was still in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be handed over to the hands of sinners and be crucified, and on the 3rd day rise again." Then they remembered his words, and returning from the tomb, they told all this to the 11 and to all the rest. Now it was Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary the mother of James, and the older women with them who told this to the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter got up and ran to the tomb, stooping and looking in. He saw the linen clothes by themselves. Then he went home, amazed at what had happened.
Easter Sunday, it's every pastor's wildest dream. It's the big one, the motherlode, the goat. People ask me, is Easter like your Super Bowl Sunday? And I say, it's way bigger. It's like the season finale of The White Lotus. That's how big Easter Sunday is. When it's in-person live, the house is packed, the music is transcendent, our kids are all dressed up like little yellow peeps, sugar buzzing on jelly bellies, and the message for Easter is so brave. Love wins, life prevails. What we thought was the end turns out to be just the beginning. And so we can go on undeterred by whatever bleak stuff life throws at us, because the powers of death will not have the last word. On Easter, our Alleluias can be so bold that we can easily forget that the Easter story is actually pretty unbelievable. especially for us moderns. A dead man coming back to life, strolling out of a tomb on his own 2 feet, it sounds pretty implausible. And because we know that what dies stays dead, resurrection would seem like the stuff of fairy tales. And so, with our enlightened minds, we silently wonder if on Easter we must suspend reason, judgment, the laws of nature for an hour, and just blindly accept the highly sketchy accounts of a handful of disciples who claim that Jesus walked out of a tomb after being dead for 3 days. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, said Carl Sagan. Shouldn't the weight of evidence for such an extraordinary claim like resurrection be proportioned to its strangeness? Without evidence or rational explanation for resurrection, some have posited that Jesus wasn't really dead when they laid him to rest. He was just unconscious. And in the cool of the tomb, he regained consciousness. Others have theorized that Jesus' closest followers, crushed by his execution as a criminal, got together and made the whole thing up, and created a myth of resurrection, if you will. It's okay to be suspicious or skeptical on Easter, but it is worth asking whether it seems reasonable that the men and women who lived and died for this man would so readily, eagerly give their lives for a myth they knew wasn't actually true. It's worth noting also that women play a key role in the Easter accounts, even though in the first century world, women were not considered credible witnesses. Women were not permitted to testify in court or to speak in a synagogue or temple. Women had no voice, no authority, no social clout or religious cachet. So we might ask, given the bias against women's testimony, why would anyone make up a story with women as key witnesses? And why would anyone actually believe them? But still, it's hard for moderns to accept that the Easter story might be true. To resolve the paradox, maybe we reduce Easter to a metaphor, a symbol for making a new beginning, a fresh start, turning over a new leaf, if you will. The message could be that anyone, by God's grace, can turn their lives around and begin again. And that works. Or maybe we point to how Easter always coincides with spring and resurrection as a natural phenomenon, as natural as new grass coming up green, or tulips sprouting from bulbs after a long, harsh winter. Nature is a compelling example of the power of resurrection, and yet the Easter story makes the bold claim that a man crucified and buried walked out of a tomb alive. Metaphor and Mother Nature can't resolve this paradox. And if you struggle with this paradox, you should know you're in good company, not only here at St. Andrew, but also in the biblical reports about the first Easter, where we are told the witnesses of the resurrection couldn't actually believe any of this either. According to the story, at the crack of dawn, some women go to the tomb, and they find the stone rolled away, the body's missing. 2 men are standing there. "Why are you looking for the living among the dead?" they ask. "He's not here. He's alive." And suddenly the women remember that Jesus had told them before his arrest and execution that he would be killed but would rise again. And so they run home and break the news to the disciples, but according to Luke, these words seemed to them an idle tale, it says, and they did not believe the women. In the original Greek, the word for idle tale is leros. Leros is the root in our English word delirious. So are you following me? This is how the first Easter actually goes down. An empty tomb, a missing body, a few delirious women, and 11 disbelieving disciples. Is it just me, or Is this any way to run a resurrection? If you can't believe the unbelievable, you're not alone, but I'm not sure the question we must answer at Easter is, do you believe it? Because honestly, nobody in this story actually believes it. The question of Easter is not, can you believe in the resurrection? Maybe the question of Easter is, can you still be amazed? No one on that first Easter believes this idle tale, but it's Peter who is intrigued, curious. He slips out the back door, runs to the open tomb, stoops and looks in. And he sees the burial rags rolled up by themselves. That is all that's there. There is no Jesus sighting. There is no indisputable evidence of a resurrection. And yet, Luke says, Peter went home amazed. The word is thaumaizon in the Greek. It means captured by wonder, amazed. You know, this word appears only once in all the New Testament, and it's used right here to describe in Luke the experience of Easter. Amazed. When was the last time you were amazed? When you experienced something so awe-inspiring, breathtaking, that you were captured by wonder. Awe, amazement, wonder, it can be such a rarity in the modern world. We live lives that are starved of wonder. Reality robs us of amazement. Like those disciples, we live in a Good Friday world in which we accept death and violence as just facts of life. Wonder, we think, is for the naive. We know how the world works. But then it happens. You're hiking through a forest of giant sequoias. You're summiting Pikes Peak on a clear day. You're gazing up at midnight at the heavens as pulsars flash against the dark canvas of space. You're standing knee-deep in a stream, casting a fly into a riffle. Or you're sitting in a rocking chair, smelling the top of a newborn baby's head. And suddenly it washes over you reverence, amazement, wonder for the ineffable, incomprehensible immensity of life. And suddenly you feel so small and you're rendered speechless, and you're reminded that there's more to this world, a dimension of reality and beauty and possibility than what you can ever know or imagine. In those moments, you don't ask yourself if you believe the experience is actually happening. Instead, you ask, what am I feeling and what truth is being revealed here to me that I need to receive? Easter doesn't require us to believe anything. It simply invites us to walk through this world with a little more wonder and amazement. No one believed anything that first Easter, but after looking into the empty tomb, Peter ran home in amazement, captured by wonder. What makes you run in amazement? I heard the story of two gas company servicemen who were checking meters in the suburban neighborhood somewhere. One was an older supervisor, the other a young trainee. And they parked their truck at the end of the street and they worked their way to the other end. At the last house, a woman watched through her kitchen window as the two men read her gas meter. And when they were finished, the supervisor challenged his trainee to a foot race back to the truck, just to prove that an older guy could still outrun a younger one. And so they took off in a sprint, and as they neared the truck, they realized that the woman from that last house was huffing and puffing right behind them. So they stopped and asked her what was wrong, and gasping for breath, she said, "You tell me. I saw two gasmen running full speed away from my house, so I figured I better run too." What makes you run Peter runs in amazement. What makes you run in amazement? If you've ever struggled to believe, remember that faith, according to Easter, does not begin with believing anything. Faith begins with wonder, amazement. Pay attention to what amazes you. Stay curious, wide-eyed, open-minded to the unbelievable, ineffable, incomprehensible mystery of life. God is always where the wonder is. And amazement is always one of the purest forms of worship. The late poet Mary Oliver gave 3 important instructions for living life. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. Are you so distracted by the trivial and transient that you find it hard to pay much attention to what is beautiful and enduring? Are you so certain and cynical about everything that it's hard to be astonished by anything? Are you rarely ever amazed by the mysteries of life because you're too busy trying to solve them? There was a movie back in the 1990s called Grand Canyon. In it, all these characters are living awe-starved lives in a world that seems to have lost its moral compass. Every day, people are shot on city streets, and babies are abandoned in vacant lots, and everyone seems to be angry with each other. In the film, the Grand Canyon is a metaphor for the growing rift that divides society. But it's also a metaphor for the beauty and wonder we all long for, which is the only power that can really heal us. And at one point in the film, one of the characters says rather prophetically, "The world doesn't make any sense, and we're getting used to it." Only wonder can save the world. Only awe can restore us to one another and to God. If you want to live faithfully in this world, don't tell others what you believe. Tell them what makes you astonished, and you will have told them everything they need to know about God. There's a modern cathedral in England built in the early 1960s. It features one massive wall made entirely of glass. The wall is 70 feet high, 45 feet wide. Now, etched into the glass are these huge figures, 4 feet wide, 10 feet tall, of saints and angels, and they all seem to be celebrating something, blowing trumpets and dancing across this enormous wall of glass. If that scene were the only thing you saw when you looked at that glass wall, you might wonder how anyone could construct such a thing and at such an exorbitant cost in a world where millions starve and suffer, in a world where the gap between the haves and the have-nots continues to grow, where so much violence and oppression continues unchecked. You might look at that glass wall and wonder what sort of God would throw a party like that in a troubled world like this. And you might think to yourself, well, that's the problem with religion, always stuck in some fantasy world while the real world is falling apart. The cathedral is located in Coventry, and only by learning its story do all those dancing angels and saints in the glass begin to make sense. In November 1940, Coventry suffered the longest air raid endured in any one night by any city in England during World War II. 451 people perished. The city was reduced to ruins, including its beautiful cathedral built in the 14th century. In the early 1960s, when they built the new cathedral on that site, they chose the theme of resurrection to guide the architectural design. So when they built that modern glass wall with all those saints and angels dancing around, they built it in front of the old ruins of the former cathedral. The rubble of those ruins, which so aptly symbolize our broken world, can only be seen through that glass wall of angels and saints who are caught up in the divine wonder of a promise from another time and place. The promise that our ruins can be transfigured by God's enduring love. In the glass, you see both the ruins beyond and your own reflection within, all mediated through the amazement and beauty of the divine reality. Looking through that glass wall, our present world, troubled as it may be, is transfigured by a celebration of joy and wonder. It's happening all around us, if only we will stop and pay attention. Faith begins with wonder, and maybe in the end, faith is wonder. And believing is simply the capacity to be amazed. So pay attention to what amazes you. Stay curious, wide-eyed, open-minded to the unbelievable, ineffable, incomprehensible. Stoop, take a closer look, like Peter. God is always where the wonder is. And amazement is always one of the purest forms of worship. And every day we must choose. Will we live half alive and preserve the illusions of a Good Friday world, or will we live fully alive, astonished that the risen Christ is all around us, that love wins and life prevails, and what we always assume is the end is actually just the beginning?